Leclerc did not just finish Austria with worn tires. He finished with tires that were completely done. And that is the phrase that should terrify Ferrari, because once the tires are gone, everything disappears with them. Pace, strategy, confidence, the ability to attack, the ability to defend, even the belief that the car underneath you could be trusted when the race gets brutal. Ferrari had hope after Spain. They had Leclerc near the front. They had Hamilton alongside him. They had a chance to prove the comeback was real. But Austria exposed a much darker problem. If Ferrari keeps giving Leclerc a car that can shine for one lap, then destroy its tires when a race matters, how long before frustration turns into something Ferrari can no longer control? Subscribe to the channel. At first, Austria looked like the kind of weekend Ferrari desperately needed. Not just because of the points, because of the story. Ferrari had arrived carrying the emotional lift from Spain, and that mattered. Hamilton's victory had changed the mood around the team. It made the garage feel lighter. It made the fans louder. It made the idea of a real Ferrari comeback feel less like hope and more like something that might actually be happening. And for Leclerc, that created a very different kind of pressure. Because when Ferrari rises, Leclerc is never just another driver inside the project. He is part of the identity of the team. He is the driver who has carried years of frustration, years of near misses, years of believing that eventually Ferrari would give him the car to fight properly. So Austria was not just another race. It was a test of whether Ferrari's progress could protect him when the weekend became difficult. That is where the tension begins. Because the Red Bull Ring is not a circuit that lets a team hide behind emotion. It is short, direct, and brutal. Long straights expose a car that lacks efficiency. Heavy braking zones expose instability. Traction zones punish rear tires that are working too hard. And once the tire temperature starts climbing, the race can turn against you very quickly. At first, Ferrari looked like it might survive that test. Leclerc was near the front. Hamilton was close as well. The red cars had position, expectation, and enough one-lap speed to make the race feel possible. On paper, this was exactly the kind of moment Ferrari needed. Two cars close to the fight. A recent victory behind them. A chance to prove that the project was becoming stronger. But underneath the promise, the first cracks were already visible. Leclerc had warned that Ferrari was losing too much time on the straights. That matters at Austria because the circuit rewards cars that can accelerate cleanly and defend themselves at high speed. If you are slow on the straights, you do not just lose lap time. You lose weapons. You cannot attack as easily. You cannot defend as safely. You cannot force the car ahead to panic. And that already made Leclerc's race harder before the tire story even fully appeared. But then came the second concern, and this one was even more uncomfortable. Ferrari was not only losing on the straights. The car was also not performing in the corners the way the team expected. That is when a race weekend starts feeling dangerous. Because a Formula One car can live with one weakness if another strength balances it out. If the car lacks straight-line speed, maybe it fights back in corners. If it struggles in corners, maybe it has top speed to recover. But when a car is missing comfort in both places, the driver starts running out of answers. And that is exactly where the tire problem begins to matter. Tires are not just black circles on the car. They are the connection between every idea Ferrari has and the reality of the track. The engine, the aerodynamics, the setup, the strategy, the driver's skill. All of it has to pass through the tires. If the tires survive, the race stays alive. If the tires collapse, everything collapses with them. That is why the phrase "completely done" is so powerful. It does not sound like normal wear. It does not sound like a driver calmly managing degradation. It sounds like the moment when the car has taken everything from the rubber and the driver is left with almost nothing to use. For Leclerc, that is more than frustrating. It is personal, because a driver can accept pushing hard and using the tires. That is racing. A driver can accept a planned drop in performance. That is strategy. But what a driver cannot accept, at least not for long, is feeling that the tires are disappearing faster than the fight itself. That creates doubt. And doubt is dangerous inside Ferrari. It makes every good qualifying lap feel less convincing. It makes every strategy call feel more fragile. It makes every promise of progress feel conditional. It makes the driver ask the one question no team wants to hear. Can this car actually protect me on Sunday? That is the hidden question behind Austria. Not whether Leclerc can be fast. Everyone already knows he can be fast. Not whether Ferrari can create a strong Saturday. They already proved that. The real question is whether Ferrari can give Leclerc a car that keeps its tires alive when the Grand Prix starts punishing every weakness. Because a race is not a single burst of speed. It is a long negotiation with the car. Every lap asks the driver to decide how much he can risk. Brake a little later, or protect the rear tires. Attack the corner, or avoid sliding. Stay close to the car ahead, or back off to save the rubber. Push now, or keep something for later. When the tires are healthy, those choices feel like tactics. When the tires are completely done, those choices feel like survival. That is the difference Austria exposed. And for Ferrari, the timing could not have been worse. This was supposed to be a weekend that strengthened belief. Instead, it sharpened a fear that has followed Ferrari too many times before. The fear that the car can promise something in qualifying, then fail to hold the same promise in the race. That kind of pattern wears down a driver. Slowly, not all at once. One painful Sunday at a time. Those questions matter because Leclerc is not simply driving for points. He is driving for proof. Proof that Ferrari can give him a machine that matches his level. Proof that the project is not stuck in a cycle of promising Saturdays and painful Sundays. Proof that when the team says progress is coming, the race will eventually confirm it. And Austria did not confirm it. Austria reopened the wound. That is why the word revolt does not need to mean a driver publicly turning against the team. In Formula One, a revolt can begin as a shift in tone, a sharper comment, a colder debrief, a little less patience, a little more insistence, a driver who stops accepting explanations and starts demanding evidence. Leclerc has earned the right to demand that evidence. He has given Ferrari loyalty, speed, and belief through seasons that have tested all three. He has produced qualifying laps that made the car look better than it was. He has carried the pressure of driving for a team where every weakness becomes global news. And he has done it while still speaking about Ferrari as something more than just an employer. But loyalty does not make tires last longer. Passion does not fix degradation. History does not protect a rear tire that is overheating under traction. That is the cold truth Austria gave him. And it is the cold truth Ferrari now has to answer. Because if the tires were completely done after one of the most important weekends of the season, then the issue cannot be brushed aside as normal wear. The team has to understand whether the car is too hard on its tires by nature, whether the cooling limitations made the problem worse, whether the dirty air made following too expensive, or whether the setup choices created a race that was always going to slip away. And each possibility has a different consequence. If it was setup, Ferrari can adjust. If it was strategy, Ferrari can learn. If it was cooling, Ferrari may have to accept a performance trade. If it was dirty air sensitivity, every traffic battle becomes dangerous. But if it is the car's core behavior on circuits like Austria, then Leclerc is facing a much bigger problem. A problem that can return. That is what makes this moment so tense. Because one tire collapse is painful. A repeatable tire weakness is season-defining. And rivals will not ignore it. Mercedes will look at the Austrian race and understand that forcing Ferrari into tire stress could be valuable. Red Bull will understand it too. Any team fighting Ferrari will know that if Leclerc has to push early, defend hard, or follow in dirty air, the Ferrari may begin using up its tires faster than it wants. That means Austria did not only hurt Ferrari on the day. It may have handed its rivals a method. Make Leclerc spend the tires. Make him attack before he wants to. Make him sit in dirty air. Make the Ferrari work harder than the Mercedes or Red Bull. Then wait, because if the tires are fragile, time becomes the rival's weapon. That is the brutal part. The rival does not always need to pass Ferrari immediately. Sometimes they only need to force the Ferrari into a bad tire life situation. Let the red car use its grip. Let Leclerc fight the balance. Let the degradation arrive. Then the race opens naturally. That kind of pressure is exactly what Ferrari must prevent. Because if Leclerc starts feeling that every battle comes with a hidden tire penalty, then his racing freedom disappears. He becomes a driver calculating damage instead of creating pressure. He becomes cautious not because he lacks bravery, but because the car punishes bravery too quickly. And that is unacceptable for a driver of his level. Leclerc can live with risk. He cannot live with helplessness. There is a difference. Risk means the driver has a chance if he executes perfectly. Helplessness means even perfect driving cannot stop the car from falling away. Austria moved too close to that second feeling, and that is why the frustration feels so serious. Ferrari now has to protect more than the tires. It has to protect Leclerc's belief. Because once belief starts wearing out, it behaves almost like rubber. At first, there is grip. The driver trusts the process. He accepts the explanations. He believes the next update, the next setup direction, the next race will be better. Then the surface starts to fade. A few difficult races, a few lost chances, a few Sundays where the car cannot turn promise into reward. And suddenly, the trust that once felt strong becomes thin. That is the emotional danger inside Ferrari. Leclerc's tires were completely done in Austria, but the deeper question is whether his patience is being worn down by the same pattern. A car that can show flashes, a team that can raise hope, a race that exposes the limitation, a driver left asking for more than explanations. This is the point where Ferrari cannot rely on speeches. They need evidence. They need a response that Leclerc can feel in the car, not just here in a meeting. They need a Ferrari that keeps its tires alive when the race gets ugly, when the air is dirty, when the stint is long, and when the driver needs to fight without destroying the rest of his afternoon. Because if they cannot give him that, the next strong qualifying will not calm anyone. It will only create the next question. Will the tires survive this time? That is not the question Ferrari wants attached to Leclerc's season. But after Austria, it is the question they have earned. The race took a promising Ferrari and reduced it to tire survival. It took Leclerc's position, his speed, and his chance to fight, and slowly turned all of it into frustration. Not in one loud moment, but in the cruelest way possible. Lap by lap, grip by grip, hope by hope. And by the end, when the tires were completely done, the message was impossible to ignore. Ferrari did not just lose performance in Austria. Ferrari lost a piece of Leclerc's trust.